Professor Ian Plimer joins me now. Great to have you on the show, Ian. Thank you for joining me. The climate catastrophists, they continually change their tune. They had this conference in Dubai. What was it all about? What was the results of that conference?
Well, let me just open by saying that this program has been a fabulous program. You're to be congratulated for it. It's a program underpinned by principle. It's underpinned by right and wrong. You've been standing up for Western civilisation. You won't get that in the mainstream media. That editorial of yours was just fabulous. And that's what this program has been about. As I've said to you many times privately, this program is one of the few where you've got a moral underpinning to it. And I think you should be congratulated and proud of having such a wonderful program for so long.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate it. I really do. And you've been a great guest. But let's slay a few climate dragons
now. What was your question again?
Yeah. These clowns at the COP28, I think it was, in Dubai. I mean, they didn't really talk about the climate. They were all about everything else.
All of a sudden, there's been a realisation that these climate conferences, and we've only had 28 of them. I mean, we've got to have at least another 50 of them. These climate conferences are nothing to do with climate. They're to do with control of energy systems worldwide. No one is talking about the science of climate. Why? Because there's nothing to talk about. Our science, geology, has known for hundreds of years that climate changes naturally. It's driven by natural processes. The variability we've seen in the past is far, far greater than anything we measure today. It's a total, absolute non-issue. It's got nothing to do with climate. It's got nothing to do with the environment. It's all to do with power. And if you have power and money, you can control. And this was an energy conference. It wasn't a climate conference.
I'm going to get to some of that in a second, but do you remember we sent over Chris Bowen, of course, who's perhaps the most failed minister in this current government. But he started off his speech there by having a welcome to country of sorts. Have a listen to this.
Friends, I begin with an acknowledgement that at the heart of action on climate change must be profound respect for those who've cared for our respective lands for millennia, the Indigenous people across the world.
And then, of course, he seemed to get all upset because fossil fuels are still part of the future.
If we are to keep 1.5 degrees alive, fossil fuels has no ongoing role to play in our energy systems. And I speak as the Climate and Energy Minister of one of the world's largest fossil fuel exporters.
Ian, this bloke is so out of touch and disconnected with the rest of the world. He's doing a welcome to country of sorts for praising Indigenous people and then, you know, railing against the ultimate statement saying that we need to power the world and renewables are not going to do it. What's this going to do to Australia?
Well, it's embarrassing. Clearly, Mr. Bowen and his advisors have no idea about history of the Middle East. They have absolutely no idea about the audience. They should have known the profile of the audience. And what are they going to do next time? It'll be in an oil-rich state again, Azerbaijan. And the time after that, an oil-rich state, Brazil. So what we've had now is these climate conferences shifting from countries that don't produce any energy to those that are oil-rich. There's a fundamental shift going on. He hasn't read the room. And I think it shows that he's very poorly advised, and I think it shows what The Voice told us, that Canberra is a bubble totally and out of contact with anything that's real.
And he owes us all $275 as well. Hey, can we play Mythbuster here for a second, right? Because we've debunked the 97% of scientists agree that man is causing climate change statement. But there's a new one, because that's been debunked as well. The Conversation, which is, you know, hard left online journal sponsored by taxpayers, of course, reported that that consensus is over. Now it's well over 99% of scientists agree that man is causing climate change. And the evidence is even stronger than that, they say. Is this true?
This, again, is one of these wonderful selective reviews. They looked at the abstracts of about 43 scientific papers. Now, the only papers that can get published are those if you follow the party line. So they firstly had a very biased set to deal with. 3,000 of those were chosen, and they got the figure of 99. Now they'd flick through and say, "Oh yes, yeah. Oh yeah, no, this one, that one's good. We should use that." You can't believe these surveys at all. Science is married to evidence, not surveys by some unemployable half-brained sociologist.
which is a product of our university system. That's
Certainly
another common theme on here. Hey, we're told all the time, this is another myth buster, we're living through the hottest days on record. People in New South Wales have essentially been told to conserve power during a week of a heat wave. Have a look at this.
We're asking, households and businesses to think about what they can defer between 5 and 9 o'clock tonight. So if you can turn your air conditioning up a little bit, over about 24 is fantastic. If you can make sure that you don't use your dryers or your dishwashers or your pool pumps between sort of 5 and 9 p.m. tonight, that will all help.
Don't use your dryers or your dishwashers. I mean, how should we respond to that? But also, how should we respond to the claim that this is the hottest period in the history of the Earth?
Well, firstly, with the New South Wales Minister's comments, it wasn't a heat wave. It was warm weather. We have far hotter weather, and we've had far hotter weather in the past. Second thing is, this has got nothing to do with heat. It's due with incompetence of governments of many colours over many years, destroying an energy system that was once perfectly reliable and could handle very, very hot weather. And it certainly hasn't been hot weather in Eastern Australia. So that's a myth which needs to be broken. The second thing is that we've had very hot weather in the past. When would you like to go back? I mean, if we look at the trends of temperature, since the Middle Ages, it's warmed up. Since medieval times, it's cooled down. Since the Viking times, it's warmed up. Since the time of Jesus, it's cooled down. So if you take measurements over a couple of years and make sure you adjust those measurements, you can come up with anything. But when you look at the long past, which we geologists look at, we can say that for 80% of time, the planet has been warmer and wetter than now. We've had higher sea levels than now. So what we're being fed is demonstrable lies.
Ian, I've got 30 seconds. Someone you do a lot of work for, someone who I admire greatly, Gina Reinhart, won the AFR Business Person of the Year award. And I say it's about time there's some recognition for one of our greatest ever entrepreneurs.
Yes, well, she certainly is the greatest ever entrepreneur in this country. She started her business when it was bankrupt, and she had to pull it out of the mess that her father left her. She is a great entrepreneur, a great business person, a huge benefactor of charity, and she doesn't blow her trumpet about it. And that is one of her great qualities.
Indeed it is. Thank you very much to you for your contribution to the show over the year and for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
All the best. Merry Christmas to you, Ian Plimer.